Growing up in the 90s meant being immersed in a golden age of movies that defined our childhood and teenage years. It was a time when we marveled at the groundbreaking special effects of Jurassic Park and were swept away by the magical adventures of Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
The 1990s also saw the rise of romantic comedies, producing a wealth of films that have since become classics. These movies often combine humor, heartfelt moments, and charismatic leads, creating timeless love stories that resonated with audiences.
Welcome to Movie Voyage Through Space and Time. I'm Zach.
And I'm Sylvana.
This show takes us on a cinematic journey through every decade in which movies have been made. Today's stop for the USS Movie Voyage is 1993 with Groundhog Day.
Woohoo!
Groundhog Day, directed by Harold Ramis, is widely considered a classic 90s movie. This film combines elements of comedy, romance, philosophical reflection, resulting in a unique and enduring story.
Yeah.
The movie's concept, where the protagonist relives the same day repeatedly, was original and captivating. This time loop premise has since become a popular trope in various genres, but Groundhog Day was one of the first to explore it in depth.
Wow.
Groundhog Day is also credited with having ushered in mainstream acceptance of comedy films with fantasy genre elements. High
Lovely.
concept, as they say in the industry.
We love that.
Well, that's enough introduction for even the most introductory happy people out there. But we are, of course, Movie Voyage. We like to review movies, and today's Groundhog Day, and it's my birthday.
So
it's a very
excited.
special day for me.
Yeah.
I am born on February 2nd myself, so every
You're a
year...
groundhog baby.
I'm a groundhog baby. Every year on the same day, I have the same birthday. I celebrate in the exact same way. Yeah, I invite the same people over. My childhood friends come over, fat, balding, and disgusting. With
Wow. no need to call them out like that.
It's not even true. Anyway, but yeah, so I was excited to do this movie because
Me too.
I not only I've seen this movie a long time. I've long since seen this movie and been a fan of it, but it's been a while, I think, since I'd seen it. And I rewatched it maybe a few months ago, and I was just dying laughing. So I knew we had to get it on this list. I was very pumped that it was our first one for the 90s to watch.
Yeah.
And you hadn't seen it, I think.
I hadn't seen it. The 90s are obviously super special to us, being 90s babies ourselves. I feel like
Only
I
a
just...
90s child would understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really, really, really sorry I did that. Go.
It's totally fine.
I will diminish.
Yeah, the 90s were such a good decade. Like, so nostalgic. I feel like the perfect combination of, like, still kind of, you know, a lot of still playing outside. And, you know, we grew up still, like, with
We
a
had
lot of
toys to play with.
You know, toys while
Not your
also, like...
dang video games, console machines.
Yeah, but towards the end of it, we saw the emergence of, like, more fun things. And, like, you know, we were... I mean, VHS was huge there. I remember my first VHS tape was a Harry Potter tape.
Ooh. I don't remember ever owning films until I was about 6 or 7. And that's not true. I do remember having Disney films. So I definitely had Disney VHSs. But the first VHS that I remember, like, always going back to and being happy that I had was Star Wars.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, the original Star Wars.
Very nice.
Although I will say it wasn't the original version of the original Star Wars. I am a 90s baby, so I think the first one I had was the first remaster or whatever that Lucas did. So it put Jabba in. Yeah. It put some creatures, I think, in and around Mos Eisley. So it was...
That's cool.
Yeah, it had some, like, new digital effects and such. But I loved that movie so much.
Yeah. I mean, I think of the 90s so fondly. I feel like it was so hard for us to pick from this list. It was, you know, some of these movies are so near and dear to my heart, like Matilda and Jumanji and Space Jam.
You and I both share a very, I think, random fascination with the movie Matilda.
I loved it.
I did too.
I watched it every single day.
Yeah. I probably did for a time. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, Mrs. Trunchbull.
Yeah, oh God. So horrible. The part where that little kid has to eat all the
cake. Oh my God, that makes me vomit.
Yeah,
just to
same.
Think about.
It's so horrible. Okay, anyway, so I am glad that we picked Groundhog Day because I feel like it's very 90s. It was early 90s, of course, like you said, 1993. But I feel like it was the perfect combination of like movies starting to become a little more kooky and like
high
strange
concept
and high concept, and also like we mentioned, the rise of the rom-com this is when really started to take off in the 90s. So
really, so we don't think that rom-coms as a thing were very popular in previous decades, because I will say that I've seen It Happened One Night from the 1930s or something like that. It was black and white, whatever it was. Maybe it wasn't 30s, maybe it was 50s. But just I would have guessed maybe 40s or 50s.
Well, I feel like the 90s was like kind of the renaissance.
But anyway, it was the first screwball comedy, which is now, it became the formula for how to make a rom-com.
Yeah, I think like this was just kind of the renaissance of it, like the peak of it. A lot of really good, like, you know, the classic ones that we think about in our head that people think about, like Sleepless in Seattle and Tom Hanks rom-coms and You've Got Mail. That was all in the 90s.
Too true.
So I feel like it's really kind of where it was like at its peak. Romantic comedies really kind of went away after the early 2000s.
I feel like I didn't watch a lot of, I wasn't watching romantic comedies at all in my life until maybe a few years ago, which I started to open my heart to doing that.
Good.
But,
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, but I don't think I was watching a lot of movies in the 90s. I wasn't much of a movie guy. I feel like
interesting.
I watched Disney movies and I watched Star Wars, and that's kind of it. Other than that, I was watching TV. I just realized that I was completely out of frame.
Oh,
do you mind if I scooch this way?
Yes, you can scooch.
Anyway, but so it was a lot of TV shows. Once it hit the 2000s, then I was actually watching movies.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I was about to say that 90s was like peak for everything, but how would I know?
Well, I can tell you it was because I've been a movie person all my life. Some might say.
I would.
And yeah, I mean, the 90s was just so incredible. And I mean, shout out to my mom for making me watch a lot of really intense movies back in the 90s still, too.
I think we've gone over this before, but your mom did, in fact, force you to watch very sexy and
mentally disturbing movies when I was very young.
Yeah. Which movie most disturbed you?
Beautiful Mind.
Which is exactly how we described my mind earlier.
Yeah. It creeped me out a little. Anyway, so yeah, 90s, great decade, I feel like. And this was the perfect film to kind of, you know, really, really go through it. I hadn't seen it before. Introduce us. I hadn't seen it before. I was very excited to see it. I knew that you really liked it. Obviously, Groundhog Day is a special day for you.
It really is. I think it should be a special day for everybody. If you don't celebrate Groundhog Day in your own way, you should join your local Groundhog community, and they'll teach you how to celebrate. They'll teach you all of the different traditions that we have. You know, it's a lot of spotting shadows, your own or other people's.
I have so much to say about that. But we'll talk about it later. I do want to ask though, like, how influential do you think this movie was in the 90s? Because we talked about the fact that it is a good movie and it's very encapsulating of the feel of the 90s. But do we think it there was any cultural impact that this movie had?
Oh, well, I don't know about cultural impact. I think at least the term Groundhog Day to mean something repetitive or a day that feels just like any other day or whatever, I think must have come from this movie.
Yeah. And like you said, this was one of the first movies that really did that concept, and after that there's been several
Valentine's Day
of like reliving that day over and over again too. So, and did people really know about Punxsutawney Phil before this movie, do we think? Like people around the country, people that didn't live in Punxsutawney?
I have no idea.
Maybe this movie made it famous.
Made him famous?
Yeah.
Do we think it's the same Punxsutawney Phil that's been there all these years?
I have tidbits about that.
How long does a Punxsutawney Phil live?
Groundhog probably doesn't live very long. 10 years maybe.
Damn. He's dead now, guys.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you.
Sorry to say.
How old do we think Punxsutawney Phil was in the film?
I have things to tell
He
you
was
about
probably
it.
already end of life.
Well, I have things to tell you about it.
Goodness. I hope it's not going to be a Milos and Otis or Milo and Otis.
What?
Sort of thing. Yeah. Have you heard about Milo and Otis?
No.
Yeah, that was the movie where it was about the cats and dogs and such. They killed so many of them in making that movie.
That's horrible. No, that's not what it is here.
Okay.
They took good care of their groundhogs.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I did. So I obviously you've seen it before. I haven't. I feel like I had no preconceptions about this movie. Other
Did
than
you
I
even know that it was going to be reliving a day over and over?
I think I vaguely did, but I didn't really have it in the front of my mind until it started. And I was like, oh yeah, the movie's about that.
Yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah.
But I really went into it fully not knowing what it was about, other than it had Bill Murray in it and that people loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we'll talk about all the ways and how I enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, well, you were talking about preconceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you asked me since I had seen it before.
Yeah.
Did you have a follow-up on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, was this watch any different than others? I think you mentioned that you didn't laugh as much this time.
Yeah, well, I think that when I'm alone, I think people have the opposite condition sometimes, where if they watch a comedy, they'll only laugh out loud if they're with other people. Sometimes I'm the opposite way. I feel like I lose my comedic inhibitions more when I'm by myself, and I will die laughing by myself.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And when I'm with other people, maybe I don't laugh as much, unless they're also laughing a lot and you weren't laughing. We were also watching over FaceTime.
Yeah, we were watching over FaceTime.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. There was one point where I started laughing so hard and I couldn't stop over something the cameraman did or something like that. And I was just like,
remember.
It was so funny to me. And it wasn't even like a real funny thing.
It wasn't.
But the delivery, I was just like, oh my God, this is perfect.
It wasn't when he got up into the auction thinking that people were going to spend
No,
money
it
on
wasn't
him.
that, but that also was really funny. Okay, well, do you want me to give you tidbits? I have all the tidbits.
Yeah, let's go into tidbits.
Okay, so during the filming of the scene where Phil drives with a groundhog, where he goes crazy and he's like, I must kill this groundhog or whatever, and he kidnaps him.
I think that's when you started dying laughing, when he went off the edge. The cameraman said something.
Yeah, I think that's right.
He could be okay. And then it explodes.
Yeah. That part really got me. I don't know why. Anyway, the animal bit Bill Murray twice, and he had to get rabies shots. Because it was just the two of them, and the groundhog was panicking because obviously who wouldn't? When Bill Murray's driving like a maniac.
Starstruck being working with Bill Murray.
Bill Murray,
yeah.
So yeah, he had to get rabies shots because of it.
Okay.
So that was interesting.
So I wonder if it was the same groundhog the whole time.
Yes.
Okay, so I wonder how
more tidbits about that,
Bill
but
Murray adjusted his acting style after being the first and second
He
time.
hated it.
Yeah, maybe,
he was like, I never want to touch this groundhog.
I'm never working with that groundhog again.
Yeah,
I'm gonna blacklist this guy.
Yeah, genuinely, I bet he did that.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is that all the weather forecasts that Phil gave for those few days actually turned out to be true for the days that actually ended up being those days later on. Obviously, they filmed ahead of time.
Yeah. But it was true for that town in Pennsylvania?
That town in Pennsylvania for that day, there was a huge blizzard.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, like years later.
They probably consulted a farmer's almanac.
Maybe they did. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then obviously we talked about this, but the director is Harold Ramis. And Harold and Bill Murray had a lot of movies that they worked together on, including Ghostbusters, the first Ghostbusters, and Caddyshack.
I asked you how their working relationship was, and you refused to tell me.
Yeah, I refuse to tell you until now, which is the fact that they worked on several movies together. Those three, at least, are the most famous ones. This movie really ended things for them.
They weren't friends after this?
Yeah, it was like too many creative differences between them during production, and it led to a personal professional rift. They never worked together again. The rift lasted many years. And what I mean by that, I mean they only reconciled like a month before Ramis died in 2014.
Oh, wow.
When they were like, okay, we should make amends. But genuinely for like 20 years, they didn't speak to each other after that.
Damn.
So that was rough.
I know that Bill Murray, especially in his earlier years, it could be difficult to work with because he was just had very strong ideas about how things should be. And all the rest of that.
That's totally true. Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like their creative work together is great. Yeah. It's excellent.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the risk you take, right? Like at some point, maybe it could be great or it kind of falls apart.
I think that it seems similar, at least, to how Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant. They worked together for a while. They did some great
brilliant
things.
Stuff.
And I don't know. Neither of them, I think, have ever talked about there being a rift between the two of them, but something happened.
Yeah, something must have happened.
Never worked together again. They never really talk about each other.
Yeah.
And the work that they do now is, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But, it's not the heights of what they used to do together.
It's certainly a shame because I think it was really like fun type of work that they did together. Mm-hmm. Another thing, there was an alternate ending that was not picked where Rita was revealed to be trapped in her own time loop at the end of the movie.
Oh, interesting. And what lesson did she learn? To loosen up and just make out with people on a whim?
I have no idea. We have no idea.
So do you think that deleted scene is on a DVD somewhere? Maybe
I don't know. I don't know that it was an actual deleted scene. Maybe it was an alternate ending when they were scripting it, and then it changed. Yeah.
Okay.
But it was scrapped in favor of this ending because I guess the screenwriter for it,
Harold Ramis
and
somebody else.
That other person wanted this, and Harold Ramis was like, "No, we need to end it in a somewhat positive way."
I mean, I honestly think that that's a better ending. It's certainly a nicer ending, a more Hollywood ending, but I think it's a more digestible ending. If after all of the struggle we went through with Bill Murray's character,
I think
at the end of the movie, like all of a sudden, like she's malfunctioning as well. She's like, "Oh, I'm a totally different person all of a sudden."
Yeah.
It would have just been too much to digest, maybe.
I think so.
And also, I think it would undermine the emotional journey that he went on.
I think that's exactly right. And I think that's how they compromised too, because I think Ramis wanted it to be a little bit more lighthearted in general. And the other man, I can't remember his name right now. Sorry, other man. He was like, no, we have to keep the suicides. We have to keep the really bad low parts of his life. So that it all pays off like a little bit, right? Like we have to really think about what we would do if we were stuck in this. And like the innate truth is the fact that like you feel so stuck that it makes sense that you would have suicidal thoughts.
Yeah, well, especially
especially if you think
if it
won't actually happen to you. It's been so long.
If it's been so long that you're in that town and you've gone through the same things a million times and nothing has ever changed, there's no prospect of anything ever changing again. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to my next point, which is that in the movie, we never know how many days Phil actually relieves.
Yeah, I think my estimate was somewhere between 5 years and 20 years.
Yeah. The estimate is between 10 and 40 years.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's a Venn diagram where I'm right there.
That's right. That's what film scholars have.
Film
scholars.
Oh, I thought you said this was an answer from
No, I think
Ramis
also talked about it. And he was like, I don't know. I don't have an exact number, but it's decades.
Yeah. That's what I would.
Which makes sense because you and I were talking about this as we were watching. We're like, the man knows how to build ice sculptures, has become like a
concert pianist.
Yeah,
he can speak French. He now knows all the literature.
Right, like it literally. This man really has spent decades. Well, so
I think I remember saying that I thought it was years at a certain point, and you were like, "What years?" Yeah. So, like, what was your instinct at that point?
I think at one point I was just like,
probably just because you hadn't been sitting with it long
I think
enough
that's
to really
probably
consider,
right. But I think that makes total sense that it was decades.
But what was your impression at that time? Were you thinking days?
I was thinking months, maybe a year. I think I was thinking like closer to a year.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that it must have been decades. It makes sense that it would have been decades. It really sucks. I think it just didn't want that for him. Honestly, I was just like, that really fucking sucks.
He seems like such a sweetie pie.
Yeah. Total sweetie pie. Okay, so the movie obviously is set in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
It was actually filmed in Woodstock, Illinois.
Illinois? I can't believe it. Why would film anything in Illinois?
I don't know, but
I thought you actually had an answer. You turned to me like you knew something.
No, I really don't know why they picked that place, but they've completely embraced it. And so the town now celebrates Groundhog Day and it's like super intense about it. And, they do tours of the filming locations and completely embraced its connection to the film. That is on the Woodstock, Illinois side. On the other side, Punxsutawney officials were upset that the film wasn't actually filmed in Punxsutawney. So
they refused to celebrate.
Well, they refused to allow the real Punxsutawney film to appear in the film. So it wasn't actually Phil.
Dang it, Phil. Well, it was probably a cousin of Phil, though. There aren't a lot of groundhogs in show business, I wouldn't think.
So you know how they picked the groundhog?
No.
They went to the side of the road and found one.
Is that true?
That is so true.
What?
That the groundhog we see, they just found like 10 minutes away from where they were filming.
They just stole him
from his family.
What?
Yep.
Did they release him again, or did they murder him?
No, they released him again, but it was just a random groundhog.
I can't believe it.
I know.
I mean, on the one hand, it's nice to have new talent in the industry.
Yeah,
you don't want the same tired groundhog
discovered
that you see in every single movie.
That's right. Yeah.
Bring up some new blood. That's pretty great.
They literally what's his name? Ramus. And they literally just went and picked Ron up.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
And that became Punxsutawney Phil in the film.
Great.
So that was
Did
crazy.
he have a career after this movie?
I don't think so.
No?
Unfortunately. It was a one-hit wonder type of
situation. He
situation.
probably spun out and did a lot of drugs.
That's right.
Yeah.
That always happens. You're right. So there was a lot of improv in this film as well.
I believe it.
Including the fact that one funny one is that at one point, obviously, Rita and Phil are toasting. And she says that she always toasts to what? Do you remember?
World peace.
World peace. Yeah. That was complete improvised. She was like, world peace?
She looked so sincere when she said it.
Yeah. Which I have more to say once we discuss acting a little bit more.
Well, some of that has to have been planned, or at least I thought, because they refer back to it in subsequent
they just
scenes.
went with it after.
But so were they filming these things sequentially?
Yeah, I guess so.
Or contiguously?
I think so.
They couldn't have been, like, I'm sure.
Not all of it, but yeah.
Yeah, every variant of a certain set.
Yeah.
They probably filmed from the beginning of, well, I guess from the beginning of his journey in that time loop to the end.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah.
So I guess it was just completely ad-libbed by Andy McDowell. And Bill Murray did not know how to play the piano, but he took lessons to convincingly play the scenes.
I was wondering.
Phil masters the piano. It's actually him.
Yeah, I was wondering if that might have been him because it at one point showed him playing, but it also showed his fingers moving about.
Yeah, it was actually him. He learned before filming started, and then he kept taking lessons during the production.
Great. I wonder if he still does. I know he likes to surprise people in pubs.
Yeah.
And just hang out with folks. Or
It'd be fun if he went to like a piano bar or something.
The legend. Exactly. And played some piano for him.
Yeah, that's really funny. And the last couple things that I just want to say is that 1993 was a really big year for film. And it's widely considered one of the greatest years for film across a range of genres. Groundhog Day was one of many family films released that year. At that point, studios really were all in on family films because they were making money because adults and kids could see it.
Sure.
And so Groundhog Day was one of many, including Free Willy, Last Action Hero, and obviously Jurassic Park.
I don't know Last Action Hero, but Jurassic Park was 93?
93.
Oh, well.
Yeah. So that was all like family movies. And then other than that, there were a lot of blockbusters. Like Mrs. Doubtfire was a 93 movie.
Well, yeah, but not a blockbuster. That's also a family movie.
Yeah, but it is a blockbuster. It made more money than anything else.
Well, sure. I mean, it was a successful family movie, but it wasn't. Well, it wasn't. Jurassic Park's a blockbuster.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Indecent Proposal, that was 1993. Became a really big movie.
Is that George Clooney?
I don't know.
What's the one with George Clooney where he's like married to somebody? And
I think it might be this. I don't know.
I have to look it up.
Okay, well, let's look it up.
Okay.
Well, I tell you about other critical favorites. 1993, Schindler's List 2.
Oh.
And Philadelphia.
Philadelphia was Tom Hanks, right?
Tom Hanks. And then other future classics like Dazed and Confused was 1993.
Dazed and Confused was?
Yeah.
I've never seen it. Isn't that like the archetypal like stoner movie?
Yeah.
Or something?
And then Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. That's also a 93 movie. And your fave, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, I love that.
That was also a 93 movie. So very good year for movies is what I'll say.
Hey, you know what? I wasn't on board beforehand, but I am now.
Great. I'm so glad.
Intolerable cruelty.
Oh yeah, that is right. That is what you're thinking about. Yeah. Yep. So yeah, those are my tidbits for you.
Well, those were glorious tidbits. I don't have any for you because I'm not allowed to.
Well, maybe
it's
next
the
time for the 2000s. Do you want to do the tidbits?
I'll do the tidbits for
great.
2000s.
Love that.
Yeah.
So should we talk about what we loved or didn't love about this movie?
Yeah.
What worked and what didn't?
Yeah. So let's talk about writing first. I think that the writing was completely fine. I mean, it invented a whole type of plot, which is not a lot of movies get to claim that.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, it has to be 10 out of 10 for the writing. There was at least one plot hole. I won't even say plot hole, but just like an inconsistency that didn't make a lot of sense. It was the old woman being like, at the end of the movie when he's up there being the concert pianist for a whole like theater.
Oh yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
It wasn't a theater.
Yeah, the
but
teacher,
like
you mean?
Town hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the teacher was like, "He's my student. I taught him everything he knows." But from her perspective, she would have only taught him for one day, and he would have already been a genius,
a master. Yeah, yeah. That's very true. I think it was. I liked it. I thought the writing was really good. You're right that it gave us like something different. I think the humor was really well done. I think the heartfelt moments were really well done. I think they really did toe that line fairly well. And I think it was pretty sharp. I think it was a pretty sharp, concise script. And I appreciate that.
I did like the philosophical musings.
I like that too a lot.
I like that he himself he wasn't even like he had an ego problem, obviously, from the beginning of the movie. But by the point in the movie where he says, "I'm a god," or I think I'm a god. I must be a god.
Yeah.
It wasn't him being self-aggrandizing.
Yeah.
He was literally like, I mean, what else is this?
Yeah.
Am I a god?
I can't die. I know everything.
Maybe that's what being a god is.
Yeah.
You're not like magically some sort of omnipotent person.
Yeah.
You've just lived through everything a million times and you start to remember everything.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of a neat thing.
thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I think like the implications, a lot of scholars have used this as inspiration for debating more about religion and spirituality and what it means within the context of this movie.
What's the argument?
I don't know. I didn't read a lot about it, but a lot of people apparently were like, could this be someone's hell or punishment? You know, could this just be like, you're right. Like, is this just like what being a god would be? You know, like, what does it mean when something kind of supernatural happens to you, but it affects your moral code? Or like, you know, is it a miracle? Is it not a miracle? Like, was it good for him?
Yeah,
was it not?
was this a blessing or a curse?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of like discussion about that.
He did come out the other
I think
side.
that's right. I think it is interesting.
It was a blessing
to me.
via curse.
Yeah, that's right. But he went through a lot of shit things, obviously. So yeah, it was interesting. I appreciated the fact that they dabbled in that without like prescribing something necessarily.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't even much to do with like I don't think there was like a very concrete scene where, Bill Murray suddenly becomes a good man. Phil suddenly becomes a good man. I think we saw it like in a really clever way, him slowly starting to realize like, like the things that I'm doing, I shouldn't just be doing to perform.
Yeah,
because
I can't
what does it matter if I'm performing? Nobody remembers that
exactly.
anyway.
I can't manufacture these connections with people. Because not only are they going to not remember, but also it's not truly satisfying anyway.
Right, exactly.
So it was very cool to watch him, especially the one time he was very successful with the main lady. What's her name?
Rita.
Rita. He was very successful at courting her. They went and rolled a snowman. They had a snowball fight. And then at the very end of the night, he kind of screwed something up. And he's like, all right, that's all right. I'll just get it right the next day. And did everything the next day. But it felt so like manufactured.
Yeah, that she was like, what is this?
Just rotely going through all the steps. And it just didn't work.
Yeah.
So that seemed to be the turning point, but it felt so earned for him to be like, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to pursue that so single-mindedly. I'm going to work on myself.
Yeah.
And that's when he started learning piano. He started reading. He started just becoming a better person. And every single day it became clear. He was also running around saving people.
Yeah, that's right.
Learning whoever in the neighborhood needed saving them, even though they weren't going to remember.
Yeah.
And doing that just because he had done all the self-indulgent things already. Yeah. Now he wasn't doing things for fame just because they made him personally feel good and like a better person.
Yeah.
I thought it was a beautiful moral
It was
tale.
a really great character arc.
Yeah,
I think
it really was.
really, really excellent payoff to see him change this way. It felt earned. It didn't feel like, it just happened to him, you know? So I really like the writing in that.
Yeah, same.
And how do you feel about cinematography? I feel like there's not a lot to be said for it, but...
No, not a lot to be said for it. I'm trying to think of... I mean, I can think of shots in the movie, but I'm trying to think of any of them that might have been... There was, I guess, the shot of them on the train tracks and about to get hit by the train.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like the repetitive ones. I think they did those well, like the clock or
I guess
turning.
They did establish that kind of cinematic identity or like fingerprints.
I think that's right.
Where if you're repeating the same day over and over again, the cinematography kind of reflects that repetitiveness.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I mean, I think they did a great job.
I feel like it was always the same angle. Of like
when he woke up from bed
when they're like in the diner or whatever, the coffee shop, you always get that same angle of Rita sitting across from him, kind of having that conversation with him, and like it was like they did really well to preserve kind of how we were looking at things still the same way every single day.
And I wonder if that was intentional or if that was just production-wise, super easy to keep
that may be
in the
true.
same place
That may be true.
And just keep filming the next bit.
That may be true. Yeah.
Especially because if they had to do a retake for a previous shot, all the cameras and everything were in the same place already.
That's right.
So I don't know if that was a production thing or not, but either way, it ended up working out really well.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Anything to say about score or sound?
They did use also the same song every time he woke up.
Yeah, that's right. It was
put your little hand in mine.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
I don't know what that song is.
Yeah. I can't remember who sings it, but yeah.
So there was that song.
There was a song that they danced to. I can't remember what it was, but it was good. Famous song.
I feel like the rest of the score for the movie was very like 1990s.
Just typical 90s like comedy.
Exactly. Kind of comedy like.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Trumpety or like, totally. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think one of the things that I'm most intrigued to talk about with you is the acting in this movie.
Okay.
I have a lot of like alternate people that could have been cast.
Oh, that had been considered.
That had been considered.
This is going to be interesting.
But I also want you to start thinking about who would have played Phil if not for Bill Murray, or who could have played Rita if not for Andy McDowell.
Okay, well, obvious choice comes to mind. I mean, there's actually a right answer.
Okay, tell me. Oh, I think I know who you're going to say.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you say
I want to know if you know what. No, but I want to know if you know what I'm thinking.
Are you thinking about another comedy person?
I'm not telling you.
Well, I don't know. I immediately, for some reason, I thought that maybe you were thinking of Jim Carrey.
I'm thinking of Jim Carrey.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's somebody that can bring the drama, great actor,
so heartfelt.
But an amazing comedian, comic actor.
Yeah.
Absolutely, this was a Jim Carrey movie if it wasn't a Bill Murray movie.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Like, because he can be a jerk.
Yeah.
And you would believe it. And
Bruce
super
Almighty.
callous.
Bruce Almighty.
Super callous.
Yeah.
And then he can also play like just a super earnest man.
Yeah.
Who just
Truman
really like, yeah,
show.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm with you. The minute you say, oh, there's a right answer. I was like, oh, it's Jim Carrey.
If anybody says anything
Yeah,
else,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
you're just wrong.
Well, I'm glad that we're on the same page.
Yeah. Okay, so but who else was considered for this?
Chevy Chase.
Okay. I mean, he's got the same energy, I guess, as Bill Murray, but
I don't know though. Could he have played this?
yes.
You think so?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he can bring the asshole. I think he can bring the warmth. He can obviously bring the same sort of sharp comedy, I think, that Bill Murray can. I think that they're of the same cloth.
Okay, yeah.
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 I would say
could see
Jim Carrey's not necessarily of the same cloth, but I think he can do everything as well. It would be in a different way, maybe.
Yeah, I
But
could see that.
I think that Chevy Chase
It's
and Bill
kind of like a
Murray
little bit
are
more of a
similar.
just straight up replacement almost
Yeah.
for Bill Murray. Okay,
Yeah.
I could see that. Of course, industry darling, who also was in the running for Fast Times at Richmond High.
I've got this. Hang on. Matthew Broderick.
No.
Well, that's who was.
Well, yeah, that is right. But somebody else. Someone we've been discussing about a lot because we've been seeing some of his movies recently.
Some of his movies?
Uh-huh.
What movies have we been watching?
We've been
watching Martin Lawrence, baby.
No.
Yes.
No.
Martin Lawrence could have played Phil, and this would have been an amazing movie.
It would have
Hell
been.
yeah.
It would have been unhinged a little. I feel like I
would've
love it.
Fucking loved it.
Yeah, it would have been
Can
really
we
funny.
make a movie now?
Yeah, with Martin
Black
Lawrence.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Please give me that.
That would have been hilarious. Do you want me to tell you who they actually were considering?
I'm just thinking of that now. I can't. Yes, please tell me.
One, Tom Hanks.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he passed the role. He himself is the one that passed the role because he was like, this isn't for me. I don't think this is for me. He was like, I think I couldn't pull this off well enough. And he was like, I think you need someone who's genuinely sometimes a mean
asshole.
man. And Bill Murray's that for you.
Did he say
said that? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. He was like, you need someone that people can't hate. And that is not me.
He's been Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
has been
he's
jerks.
been villains. Yeah, but I think
I mean, Woody honestly was kind of a jerk. And I keep going back to Toy Story. I promise
That's
I've
so
seen
funny.
other Tom Hanks movies. I swear.
Yeah.
But that's just a good example of how
Yeah.
he was a jerk. But I think he could have played this. I don't know that he would have been as good,
yeah, I think that's
but
right.
I think he could have done it. I think he can bring
I
the
think you're
asshole.
right.
He can bring he can bring the warmth. I
mean-
think he's a great actor.
I mean, I think he has since said that Bill Murray was the right choice.
Well,
which
yeah.
I mean, I understand. I mean, he was self-aware enough, I think, to think maybe you need someone with a little bit more like just
A little bit of grit.
a little bit of grit. Yeah. So
a little bit of fuck you energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was interesting. And then the third person that they considered was one Michael Keaton.
Okay.
So,
He can bring the asshole. Blessings.
thank you.
He can bring the warmth? Question mark. Bless you.
you.
What movies have we seen Michael Keaton in where he's brought the warmth? Other than the other guys, because he played the police chief and he was a huge, I think, bless you, TLC fan in that film. And that was kind of sweet. He seemed like he might have been a sweet guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he's a good actor.
I think he could have done it.
Can he bring the warmth?
I think he could. He thought that he could be good for it, but he said that he didn't understand the script.
Huh. He's
He
just too stupid.
just didn't really believe in it. Has since also been like, that was dumb of me.
Yeah. I think he could have done it.
But I think he was like, this may be too kooky for me. I don't get it.
I think the main, yeah, you need to bring the asshole, you need to bring the warmth, but I think the main character trait of Phil is the acerbic tongue.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think it's being sharp.
Yeah.
It's being a little bit dry.
Yeah.
And like insulting people to their faces with sometimes they don't even notice that it's happened.
That's right.
So I think Bill Murray was actually perfect for
Yeah.
that. But I think that Michael Keaton could have
I think he could have done it too.
Yeah.
I think he really could have done it. I think he just was like, this might be a little too experimental for me. I don't know what this is.
Yeah. And I think Chevy Chase could have done that too.
Exactly.
I think those three actually were good choices.
Yeah.
I don't know that Tom Hanks could have done that as well.
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I think Jim Carrey could have done this movie, but it would have been different because I don't think he necessarily has that quality. I think he would insult people to their faces and they'd be confused or something by the goofiness or something.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So maybe I'm backing off of the Jim Carrey train a little bit.
Interesting.
I think Jim Carrey would have done a great job, but it would have been
It wouldn't have been like this. Yeah.
It would have been different.
I think that's very true. So they also considered someone else for Rita. They wanted comedians for Rita.
No, that's the wrong choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think eventually they were like, wait, we can't put a comedian next to Bill Murray. He's always going to upstage them.
Yeah.
It's not going to be right. And also,
You
not
need
only
somebody to play
that,
the straight man.
exactly.
Yeah.
You need someone who's like completely honest and earnest in how she's feeling.
Yeah.
And, to balance the cynical.
Exactly. There needs to be the juxtaposition between
Yeah.
Bill Murray's character, who is the cynical, sharp-witted nihilist.
Yeah.
Self-involved.
I think that's
whatever.
exactly right.
Yeah.
And so they were like, wait, let's stay away from comedians and let's bring in other people.
Yeah.
Andy McDowell audition, and she's the one that was like, I think this needs to be played up as just like me being like a super optimistic, earnest human.
Yeah.
And she played it that way the entire time. And I think that was the right idea.
Yeah,
and that was the right choice.
She had the right call.
For sure. So yeah, it was, that's my little tidbits about.
What comedic women were they looking
I don't think they mentioned who, but they look through, they basically only wanted comedians. And then eventually they opened the casting.
Yeah.
For other type of women.
I'm trying to think of comedic women from the early 90s. And I can think of sitcom people talking Roseanne's and such.
Yeah.
But what about, nobody ever thinks about her. Who is the red carpet lady?
I don't know what that means.
Like, it's her over there. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Your dress is so beautiful.
Who are you talking about?
I can't believe you didn't know based on my beautiful, very perfect impression. Yeah. She was kind of an elder lady.
Oh, do you mean the one that died?
Yeah, she's
Joan Rivers.
Joan Rivers.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like
she's that would have been a joke casting, obviously, because can you see Bill Murray's character falling in love with Joan Rivers?
Yeah, no. I mean, I guess like at that point, I don't know. When did Drew Barrymore come into the scene? Like she was a little bit more comedic.
Yeah, but I mean, 50 First Dates was when she was of age.
Yeah, that's
like around of age to play that, and that was like a decade or more later.
I think that was like closer to like early 2000s. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea who it could have been. I'm glad it ended up being Andy McDowell.
I think she did a great job.
Kind of. It was kind of a little bit of a breakout role for her. After that, she did For Weddings and a Funeral, which is what she's the most known for. I believe that movie came out a couple of years after Groundhog Day. So, I think this was the right choice.
Do we know if all of her slapping was improv?
Oh, I don't know about that.
There was so many slaps in this movie. So many slaps. She kept slapping him, and there was even a montage.
You're totally right.
So, but knowing how much improv there was, I wonder if Bill Murray was. Do we know how their relationship was professionally?
I think good. I think Andy also just kept mentioning the fact that like, yeah, he's a little bit of an asshole and you gotta love him for that.
Yeah.
And she never took it super seriously. She was like, oh, this is who he is and it's perfect for this role. I think so I'm just gonna go with that.
Being friends with a person like that can be fun and can be fine. But working with them, I'm sure can
be frustrating. I think that's right. I think she just was like, oh, this is what it is. Like he's a little bit of an asshole. I love him. He's a little bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
But I think they had a good relationship.
Yeah. So. See, that's why I love Bill Murray. I know he's an asshole. At least he used to be.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's kind of fun.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. Yeah. So yeah, anything else about acting or any other parts of the movie that really like moved you or we've talked a lot about likes. Was there anything that you really disliked?
I mean, I love this movie, so I'm going to struggle to find things that I just straight up didn't like.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think if there was anybody in the movie whose acting was just kind of bad. I mean, mean, it's a comedy, so none of the acting was kinglier.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. So I guess if we're going to judge all movies on the same continuum with Godfather and whatever on one end and, Manos, The Hands of Fate, The Room.
I love how that's become the two, the two, beginning and end points. Yeah.
And I think that's at some point I need to show you a movie called Waxworks. That's a movie that Allison and I watched for our other movie podcast, Roast Tinted Reels, and that is also one of the worst movies
that's
I've ever made,
funny,
but in such a fun way.
I love that.
It's so enjoyable.
I love that.
Anyway, so that also lives on that end of the spectrum. But if we're judging all movies on that same spectrum, then we have to say that the acting was not great.
Yeah.
Because it's a comedy, so you're not necessarily looking for amazing Shakespearean acting, but I think it did its job.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Competently.
I think I feel similarly. I think the best part of it was the writing, honestly. I don't think I can fault much about it. I think, obviously there was that one random plot hole. But I appreciated how honest they were in trying to the way that they wrote it, it was like, what would we do if we were stuck in this situation, right? What realistically, what would we want to do?
And I think they captured that.
And they captured that super well.
Yeah, he went around trying to bed all the eligible women.
Yeah.
He robbed from a bank.
Yeah.
He risked his life in daredeviling pursuits.
Yeah. I'm sure there was a lot of times where he was just in bed, not moving, not doing anything.
Just on his Game Boy.
Yeah. He killed himself a lot of times in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
And
did Harold Ramis ever confirm? We talked about how film scholars were discussing this, but did Harold Ramis ever confirm what he thought kept him there? What force was creating this time?
I don't think so.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of times it's is it for a reason? Are you meant to be doing something specific? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess what we can kind of assume is that this specific thing was just him changing his life, drastically changing his life and how he interacted with other humans.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have gotten with Rita otherwise. I do find it kind of incredible that after potentially 50 years of getting to know her and trying and spending almost every day with her, he still wants to spend the rest of his actual life now with her.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I think at that point, maybe I would have been tired of her. Especially if she had been, she can't develop that relationship.
Yeah, right.
So every day she's kind of treating you as somebody she doesn't really know all that well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I would eventually move on emotionally.
Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah.
It's tough because obviously I don't know. I think if it happened to me now in this moment, right? A day with you is already a good day because we're spending it together and I love you, you love me.
But if you
we're good.
50 years, if you spend 50 years with me and I'm not from this point not developing further memories and relationship with you.
Yeah, I think that would be really tough.
Yeah. I mean, at least really I'm already in a state where I love you, so you would be getting
I think that is
love.
I think that is the one crucial difference.
Yeah. And we can still go out and have experiences.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You just wouldn't remember those.
Exactly.
I think I would be okay with it because I think eventually if it changed 50 years from now, I would be like, okay, well now we on pause. Yeah. And now we get to do everything. So I think it would be okay. It would be a lot tougher if it was our first date or something.
Yeah,
or after just a couple of weeks of knowing you.
And so there was also this reminded me that there was another plot hole. And a bigger one actually. I don't know if leaving Puxatawny would have broken his spell.
Yeah.
But he definitely could have left.
Well, that's what we've talked about because I was take a flight somewhere.
Or if the flights are grounded because of the blizzard that comes later in the day, leave early.
Yeah.
Leave now.
Right.
Steal the van.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
After 5 years of him being I can't figure out how to break the curse that's on me. Just steal the van at 6 a.m. Get up.
At 6 a.m. Get up and immediately go.
No, cut the throat of the cameraman so he can't follow you. Because whatever. No consequences.
Yeah.
Grab his keys and just go.
Yeah.
Just head out, baby.
I know. It doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah. But again, maybe they did. Maybe it's supposed to be implied that he did try that.
Yeah.
And
yeah, maybe.
that just didn't break the
Well,
curse.
there was
so he
another
stopped
times
trying.
where I also was like, this man, why is he going to his job every single day? Who cares anymore?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were a lot of times where he just didn't, where he just stayed in bed, but we just didn't see those days, you know? So,
But it was
yeah.
interesting that he kept going back to perform
doing
in
this
front
job.
of the camera.
Yeah. It was really nice. I think one of my favorite scenes was when he gives that really eloquent
And
like
people were like applauding him.
tribute to
Yeah.
Punxsutawney Phil. I really like that.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Yeah, that was sweet. All right. Well, is this movie, big two questions, is it merely of its time and does it hold up?
I don't think that it's merely of its time.
Yeah, interesting.
It's I mean, it looks dated when you look at nobody's got cell phones, the cars and such, definitely the outfits. But I think
If the movie was made, the script was made now.
yeah, I think that this could absolutely have been written and made now.
Yeah.
And there would have been stronger female characters in it.
Yeah, true.
And all the rest of it. But I think that
It would work.
absolutely
The core of it would absolutely
Yeah,
work.
absolutely. And I think it kind of was in several other movies like Valentine's Day
Yeah.
and Live, Die, Repeat. And there's probably other ones.
Palm Spring. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Really good movie, actually.
Yeah.
Really, it was a perfect quarantine movie. So we'll have to watch it.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, so I think it's not merely of its time. It definitely, when you watch it, you know what decade it's
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
Or you would, I think I would have guessed
Yeah.
either 80s, 90s, but I think that the movie itself still holds up.
Yeah, I think that's totally right.
Yeah.
I think it's not necessarily merely of its time. The story itself isn't merely of its time.
Yeah.
The overall of it, sure.
Yeah.
I think that's still
It's an evergreen
It still
script.
holds up.
Yeah.
It's definitely a rewatchable for me now that I've finally taken the plunge and watched it.
Yeah.
You can definitely watch this on your birthday every single year if you would like.
And we should.
Great.
We should watch it the night before to prepare.
Yeah, to prepare.
And then we wake up at 6 a.m.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that idea. Great. Well, how much do you think Rotten Tomatoes has given this movie of 100?
You're right, 100.
100 of 100?
Yeah, 100.
Is that really what you think they've given?
I think they should have, but I don't know. I feel like comedies and horror movies never get a very good rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'll guess 60s or 70s or something. What is it?
94.
94.
94.
Oh, that's great.
I know.
That's
People really
very
love this
surprising.
movie. I know.
I wonder if they loved it at the time as much, or if this is other reviewers now going back, since Rotten Tomatoes didn't exist at the time.
Yeah.
And new reviewers now saying, "Oh, this is a
Yeah.
classic. We love this movie."
I think people really liked it, but back then
Great.
it made good money.
Great. Not as much as Mrs. Doubtfire.
Not as much as Mrs. Doubtfire or Jurassic Park, but you know, I mean, I can't say much about Mrs. Doubtfire because you know my love of.
I love
Robin
Mrs.
Williams,
Doubtfire.
So,
It was a drive-by fruiting.
what would you give it? Our two ratings: critical rating out of 10, and our horror rating out of 5.
Okay, critical rating. I give it a 8.5.
Yeah, I think I gave Fast Times at Richmond High maybe a 6.57, and I want to give this a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
So I would say like 7.5
Because it was a
8.
very well-structured movie.
Yeah.
And I think the execution was nearly perfect.
Yeah, the acting from the two main characters was really great, even
Yeah.
if everybody else was kind of like, oh, it's just a comedy.
Right. I
I think Bill Murray played it excellently, I thought. Andy McDowell did as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think 7.58
Okay.
for me.
Yeah. And what do you think about heart rating?
Oh, I really love this movie.
Out of 5?
Out of 5, yes. I really, really love this movie. 4.3 maybe?
4.3?
4.3.
Well, I give it a 5.
Wow.
5 out of 5.
Wow. That means a lot, I feel like. Have you given a 5 to any other movies that we've watched so far?
Did I give a 5 to 2001?
Yeah, I think you did.
Either
actually.
I may have given a 5 or like a 4.9 or something like that. I can't remember. But
yeah.
I've definitely liked other movies. which I think was a problem for us for a while. We kept being very critical.
Yeah, we
but
were
this
very
was
critical.
a great movie. I mean, I knew it was going to be. I'm the one that's I think gave it more points. So yeah,
Nice. Well, I love it. I have had a good time the past couple of weeks with the 80s and 90s.
I know. I'm so excited.
The 2000s is going to be kind of crazy.
I feel like once we keep going up and up in the decades, and we're gonna be encroaching on movies that we love, and then I think it's maybe gonna dip off a little bit into 2020s.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we love as many movies in this decade as we did in previous ones. Maybe I'll surprise myself.
Yeah.
But then there's definitely gonna be a fall off because we're in the honeymoon period right now.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna wrap around back to the 20s.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's going to be movies
rough.
that we don't know again.
Yeah. That's right. That's very true.
That's our educational era. We educate ourselves in the 20s to 70s.
50s.
Something like that.
I feel like it does give us a good perspective, though, for the future of like good movies can be made, even if it was back then with the constraints that they have.
Yeah.
We just haven't watched some of those yet, but we watched Space Odyssey and so on.
By the way, is Metropolis on our list to watch?
It is, yeah.
I've heard Metropolis is so boring.
I know. Same with Citizen Kane. I hate that movie. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to people, but I hate it.
I'm dreading watching both of those.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we don't have to necessarily watch them.
Yeah, but what are the people going to say when we back out of our commitment to watch all movies
Well, you're
of
right.
every decade ever?
Okay, well, the big question.
Yeah. Did this
it-
movie? Oh, I thought we were going to say it at the same time.
Oh,
Did it?
this
Well, maybe did movie ruin life?
Did this movie ruin or improve your life?
This movie improved my life immeasurably.
Yeah, for sure.
I will never be the same. My clothes fit better. Food tastes better. The air feels fresher. After
Wow.
this movie, yeah, I
That's
loved
kind of
it.
crazy.
You?
Oh, definitely improved my life. I'm so glad that I finally watched it. I can't believe that it took me so long, but I'll never go back, baby.
You can't now.
I can go
Unless it's a Groundhog Day.
and I repeat.
And you
the
have
same
to
day.
repeat the day of watching Groundhog Day
That would be
every
wild.
day.
What did we do that day?
It'd be so dumb. I'm just imagining someone making a movie about someone stuck in a time loop watching Groundhog Day.
That'd be crazy.
It seems like a bad
Yeah.
idea.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that was it.
Yeah. Would you? And you would watch it again then?
Oh, I would so watch it
Okay,
again.
good. So would
Super
I,
rewatchable.
obviously. Okay, so that will be it for the episode today. You can please follow us
Yes.
on the old Instagrams for updates at Movie Voyage Pod.
Yes, and you may follow us on TikTok as well for fun extra content at Movie Voyage Talk TOK. Sorry. Oh,
Oh, yeah, we actually do extra stuff there. So apart from me saying doo-doo, and we'll clip that and repeat it a lot, and it'll be kind of funny, and we'll put that on TikTok.
Yeah.
We also put movie rankings on there, other stuff that we don't do in the podcast. So join the TikTok, be a cool Gen Z person.
Yeah.
And have a good time.
Yep.
And also, please, you can also watch us on the YouTubes. Same thing at Movie Voyage Pod. And review us, give us a 5-star rating on wherever you get your podcasts, and we would very much appreciate it. We will read out all the 5-star reviews on the show.
That's right.
So go out in the world and do this.
Great. Well, thank you for coming with us on our adventure through the 90s.
We'll see you next decade.
Bye.